Hey there, it's Betty from BakerBettie.com with another recipe tutorial. Now today I want to show you how to make quick bread. And quick bread, also known as batter bread, is a bread made without yeast, and it uses chemical leavening like baking powder or baking soda to make it rise. Now this means it is really easy and fast to make, hence the name quick bread. Now I'm sharing with you today my quick bread base recipe, and this can be used for endless variations and different flavors, and it can also be made into a savory or a sweet quick bread, and I'm going to show you how to make both. Now I do want to note that quick bread does have slightly different texture than a traditional yeast bread. It's more like a muffin in texture, but it's still absolutely delicious and really nice to make if you do not have yeast on hand. So let's go ahead and start with the savory version, and in one mixing bowl I'm going to combine all of my dry ingredients. Now we're going to put in our bowl 2 1/4 cup, which is 270 grams of all-purpose flour, and to that we're adding 1 tablespoon of baking powder, a ½ teaspoon of salt, and then any other dry mix-ins you want to add. I'm adding some fresh rosemary here, about 1 tablespoon, but you could also add any other fresh herbs or dry spices that you like. And I'll also add here, if you only have self-rising flour on hand, you can use that. You'll want to use 2 1/4 cup or 270 grams of that self-rising flour. And if you use that, you do want to leave out the additional baking powder and salt because that is already included in the self-rising flour. Now we're going to mix the wet ingredients together separately. We'll start with 1 1/2 cups, which is 350 milliliters of milk, and any kind you have on hand will work fine. Next, we're going to add 3 large eggs, and then 6 tablespoons, which is 90 milliliters of a neutral flavored oil like canola oil or vegetable oil. And if you don't have that on hand, you could substitute that with melted butter. And just go ahead and whisk all of those wet ingredients together. Now all you have to do is combine your wet ingredients into your dry ingredients and stir them together. You do want the ingredients to be combined well, but you don't need to stir for a really long time. And if you want to add any kind of solid mix-ins like cheese, nuts, or seeds, this would be the time that you would go ahead and stir those into your batter. I'm going to go ahead and pour this into a 9 by 5 inch, which is a 23 by 15 centimeter loaf pan. And I like to line my loaf pan with a piece of parchment paper just for easy cleanup, but you can also just grease your pan. And we're going to bake that at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius for 40 to 45 minutes. And once it's finished baking, go ahead and turn it out of the loaf pan onto a cooling rack to cool before slicing. Quick bread can taste somewhat eggy if you cut into it while it is still really hot. Now for our sweet version, we're going to do almost the exact same thing except with the addition of some sugar. So for our dry ingredients, again, we have 2 1/4 cup or 270 grams of all-purpose flour. And to that, we're adding 1 tablespoon of baking powder, a ½ teaspoon of salt, and then any other dry mix-ins you want to add. I'm adding about 2 teaspoons of cinnamon to mine. Now for the sweet quick bread, we are going to use sugar, and it can be granulated sugar or light or dark brown sugar. We're using 1 1/2 cups or 300 grams, and we're actually going to mix the sugar in with the wet ingredients. So we're adding 1 1/2 cups or 350 milliliters of milk. Then we're adding 3 large eggs and 6 tablespoons or 90 milliliters of a neutral flavored oil or melted butter. Now I'm also adding to mine about 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, which is optional, or you could use any other extract you like. And just whisk all of that together until it's really well combined and that sugar is absorbed. Now again, we're going to mix the wet ingredients with the dry ingredients and stir those until well combined. I'm using a spatula here, and you can see that it's a little bit difficult to make sure it's all getting mixed together well. So you can use a whisk if that's easier for you, but just be careful not to mix this for too long. Otherwise, it can become really tough and dry. Some lumps in the batter are normal and they will bake out. If you want to add any solid mix-ins like chocolate chips, nuts, or fruit, you would go ahead and do that here. Now pour the batter into your prepared loaf pan, and the sweet version does take a little bit longer to cook than the savory version because of that sugar. So we are going to go in at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius for about 50 to 55 minutes until a tester comes out with moist crumbs on it. And that is it, our savory or sweet quick bread. You can use this as your base recipe to make any flavor you like. I really hope you found this video helpful. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you aren't already subscribed, hit the subscription button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a video. I'm always happy to answer any of your questions, and I'll see you back here in my next video.